So today we're looking at money. Does it actually stop people going sailing? What do we reckon?
I think a lot of people think it does. When we did that Telegraph article, a lot of the comments were based around money, about having enough money to go. And a lot of newspaper articles we've done, the comments of those newspaper articles seem to suggest that they think we're very rich. The fact that we've gone away sailing. The truth is, it isn't as much as people think it is.
Or is it? I mean, how much does a boat cost though?
I suppose there is a gateway cost, which is the price of the boat. That's not to say you need a boat to go sailing. There are other ways, but if you do want to go down the buying a boat route, yes, that is quite a large opening gambit. But you can get a pretty good brokerage monohull for between £30,000 and £40,000.
A small one.
You'd be talking around about the 30-foot, 35-foot mark. I wouldn't say it's big enough for a family. People have squeezed families on that size and less, but it is a bit of a squeeze, I would say.
And you probably wouldn't be able to go very far on a boat that size, would you, really?
There are ocean crossers that are about that size. You think about the island packets, the Halberg Rassies, Pacific Seacrafts, these are all seaworthy boats of around about that budget. So people do and have gone out on boats like that. So yeah, it's possible. I mean, but at the top end of that, which I think is the figures that really scare people, is the top end catamarans. You could be paying £400,000 plus for a performance cat.
And I suppose, even though it doesn't sound a lot, 30 or 40 grand, many people never ever save that amount of money, do they? And many people don't have property that they could sell.
That's true, yeah. You do need income as well. So your gateway costs are the boat, which, as I say, could be anywhere from £30,000 to £400,000 or above. Then you have your maintenance costs, the first year, usually about 25% of the cost of the boat. And then you need an income after that. I mean, some people do rely on the savings and investments. You do definitely need some form of income, whether that's from a pension, whether that's from house rentals or shares or Bitcoin even.
Especially if you're getting that cheap bargain boat as well.
Yeah, that is probably not an advisable route to go down, I would say, because that's an unknown quantity. People do give away boats for free. Go around boatyards and you could probably pick a couple of free boats up.
But then you've got to fix it and you need the money to fix it and the time,
which
is possible, but that's the things to look at, really, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's not so much the money, it's the unpredictability and the timing. People work on boats for years and never get them seaworthy. So that's the type of thing that really eats away at your finances and your weekends and your holidays, thinking you've got a bargain, but then you never get to actually do the thing that you wanted the boat for in the first place, which was to go travel and have an adventure. So we had a fairly big boat for what we did. We had a 53-foot ML. But you often said you would have preferred to have got a smaller boat.
Yeah, definitely. I would not go bigger than 45 foot. That'd be the max. But I would go as small as 35 foot.
And why is that?
Because it's just simple, because it's cheaper, less mooring fees, less to anti-foul. That was always a real mission.
And polishing the hull as well.
Yeah. It just takes a lot of time. It's more expensive when you pull out. You just didn't need it. On a smaller boat, you can get into more places. So many reasons.
But what about ocean crossings? Would you have felt as safe on a smaller
boat?
Well,
that's the reason why I went for a bigger boat then. But now I feel it was perfectly okay doing on a smaller boat. You just get used to what you've got, really.
I suppose there was a confidence factor. A bigger boat feels safer.
Yeah, it did, I suppose. And that's partly why we got it, I think.
And plus we had 3 kids, so we felt we needed the space.
In reality, I don't think we did.
Yeah, that was a strange thing about the Amels. Even though it's a 53-foot boat, we only had 2 dedicated cabins. And Rowan had to stay in the pilot berth, which was basically a corridor. I mean, there are much smaller boats with up to 4 cabins, but we probably would have been better off going down that route, in hindsight anyway.
The only thing you wouldn't have been able to do is fit that Optimist on top. And a decent-sized dinghy as well for the family.
Yeah.
With a decent-sized outboard. But I think you could have still gone with a smaller boat and managed some of those things.
And with bigger boats, there's more complicated systems and more expensive systems as well. Everything seems to get more expensive exponentially with a bigger boat. Over 12 metres, suddenly Marinas charge a load more.
And I don't think we even went that much faster than smaller boats as well.
It was a good solid boat in big seas, though. You have to give it that.
I mean, maybe some of those journeys and passages would have been a lot worse in a smaller boat. Pretty much for sure they would have been. But I think a lot of them, it would have been okay. Depends what type of small boat you get, really.
I think boats are a bit like houses. You could ask, how good is a house, or how much does a house cost? It's a moot question unless you know the type of house, where it is, how it's made, its age, how the survey went. Boats are as different as houses in that respect.
So apart from that boat, there's also the whole travel side of it. How expensive does that have to be, really, with the travel?
You're talking about budget now?
Yeah, what are you going to spend your money on when you're traveling?
We did go away hoping to have a bigger budget than we did. Some of our financial decisions weren't brilliant at the beginning and we had to cut back quite a lot. But we did go away with an emergency budget and a living budget of around about £2,000, I would say, a month.
Once you built the Patreon up, it built up to that.
There's no point in going away and having a life of travel and adventure if you can't afford to actually have the adventures when you get there, because it's not just living on the sea, it's when you get to land and going to see things. And that's when things start to get expensive.
You don't want to not see any sights, so you spend the money on the sights. You have a taste of the food somewhere, but you obviously don't eat out every night. Street food is probably more affordable, and you don't go to, say, the marina.
Yeah, marinas and eating out are the two things which will definitely increase your budget.
But did you find that difficult? Because you always used to say you really wanted to go in the marinas.
I did want to go to the marinas when there was things to fix, because I was never certain if I was working on the engine whether I could get it started again. So it always worried me. And to be able to get off the boat and work on the pontoons if you needed to do something messy, dirty or big, or hit something with a hammer. But you could also get to the shops quite easily as well. And it just gave you that bit more confidence when the boat was actually tied up to something solid rather than just anchored out. Especially when we take the engine apart, if the storm blew up or the anchor dragged, then we had no way of getting out of that situation. So I think I did feel a sense of security when we were in the marina, when we were fixing the boat. And also the kids could get off the boat as well. So even though we did avoid marinas, I think the times that we did spend in marinas, we made optimum use of it, I would say.
I panicked because I think we end up in marinas sometimes and then end up staying for so long. And the bills were just going up and up and up. And it was just so worrying how that was going to be paid for, really. Along with all the other stuff.
I think that's where we had a bit of a conflict, because I felt that trying the local cuisine was part of the adventure. It was part of the experience. You don't just listen to music and you don't just go and see the beautiful sights. You also taste the local culture as well.
Yeah, if you've got the budget for it.
So you once asked me whether, given the choice, whether I'd go and see the Parthenon or whether I'd sit in a taverna and have a lovely meal. I think I would definitely go for the meal.
I'll go for the Parthenon, so
yeah,
that's great, isn't it?
But I was never one for those kind of honeypot, iconic tourist traps. It was just too crowded and hot. I'd much prefer to sit in a taverna, looking over a bay, watching the boat sail by and just trying the local food.
It's hard not to miss something that's important in a country, though. People go there for a reason, really.
You wanted your Instagram shot, is that what you're saying?
Well, that as well. You always get photos, don't you? We went here and there. It all blends into one, otherwise, if tavernas is the way that you're going to travel around the world.
You go to a tapas bar in Spain.
I think the idea for me was like to find one place and try the food at least once, and not to come home not having tried any of the stuff. But I felt it was more authentic and nice when you try something on the street, or someone invited you to the house, or you invited them and you went off on a trip and found something in an authentic way.
People often ask, what is your monthly expenditure on a boat? That's not an easy question to answer, is it?
No, it depends on what you do. If you're just going around anchoring off, getting your food from the local market, you're going to be fine, really, on a very tight budget. But yeah, it's not hard to go and splash out.
And it also depends where you are as well. Because I remember when we left Spain, the booze was extremely cheap. And then you go to somewhere like French Polynesia, and it was eye-wateringly expensive. You'd think the French territory would have at least cheap wine.
Fresh fish was really cheap in French Polynesia, wasn't it? It is hard to have even a food budget because you never know what it's going to cost in the next place. The main thing is to adapt. So in French Polynesia, we bought a lot of baguettes and fish. In Spain, we bought a lot of wine because it's cheap.
Ask me what my favourite place was.
Yeah, Spain. In Tunisia, you wouldn't buy any of that stuff.
There seemed to be a lot of pizzas in Tunisia.
So you just kind of adapt with what you've got and where. Like we had loads of noodles in Asia.
Yeah.
We just ate noodles every day, didn't we?
That's true, yeah. So starting out, when you're starting out, how did we manage to save the money? I mean, we went through ups and downs like crazy. We saved the money and then we had a business, then we lost the business in the financial crisis. And then we saved up again by renting out rooms in the house, which we purposely built.
I think we were lucky because buying property and selling it and the property went up. So that was really the thing that made it possible for us. Not everyone's in that situation, I suppose.
Well, I would say out there, most people who were earning money at home had some sort of rental property, even if it was just like us renting out our own home.
Yeah, that was one way of earning money, wasn't it? Some people sold their places and that paid for the boat and left some money for savings. Some people were working full-time, a lot more.
Something we tried is take my furniture business on board, not making furniture, obviously, but designing furniture and then ordering it through workshops back at home. But that was in the days before Starlink, and unfortunately the Wi-Fi connection wasn't brilliant in those days. Do you remember those antennas you used to anchor half a mile away from a cafe and try and pick up the Wi-Fi from the cafe. That was a dark art, that was.
Just go into shore and try and do some work. Some people just saved up enough and they did a year or 2 years and the money ran out and that was the end of it. Back to work.
That's probably a more practical approach, is you have a sabbatical. So you can work within a budget, so you're not indefinitely rolling the budget forward year after year. There are people who we met along the way who had gone with those sabbaticals. I mean, would you consider that as a way to have a life of adventure but come back more financially stable than maybe what we did?
Yeah, it's whatever gets you to fulfill your dream, really. It doesn't really matter how you do it. If your dream is to do something within that year, then do it. It doesn't really matter. We
did have a kind of outlying plan that it would probably be 5 years. We kind of thought we might find somewhere along the way and settle down. We weren't opposed to that idea. And there were some nice places actually on the way. And we did meet communities who had been there for years, and in some cases decades. And they'd found a new life for themselves. And some people actually move ashore in these far-flung places and buy a bit of land and do it up.
They do, yeah. But it's still about making the money, isn't it? I don't know how those people, what they did when they made the money.
I think they found work or living off a frugal income.
Yeah, which is more complicated when you've got kids though, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah, because then you've got to find schooling as well, which in a lot of places isn't free, or if it is free, then the quality is pretty low.
Well, I know one family I think of, he was working online. In fact, two I can think of now, all working online. And that's what kept them going, really.
I think Starlink has been a complete game changer. It's opened up that lifestyle no end, hasn't it?
Yeah, because a lot of those places, the income's very low. So if you've got a local job, you just wouldn't cover what you need. So out of all the things we did, what was the smartest thing we did then?
I think it was holding onto the house, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Nowhere I was going to go without keeping the house.
We did it up on purpose. It meant we had to put off the leaving date for many years while we did up the house and were able to afford it. But actually over the years, that was a great income for us because it covered the mortgage and it paid for our monthly budget as well.
Yeah, it did. And I think you just got to change your mindset a bit as well before you go and start living a simpler life and selling things you don't need, detaching yourself from it, and start to think, what do I need and what don't I need? We stopped having big kids' parties as well. I felt kind of bad, but I didn't want lots of presents that we just didn't really need.
We did a lot of things. We had an old car. You became the eBay queen, selling off all sorts of stuff. And I think the other smart move is we went through our bank accounts line by line, which sounds laborious and doesn't sound that good a way of saving money, but it's incredible the amount of subscriptions and memberships that build up over the years that you forget about. It was like financial whack-a-mole for a while, wouldn't it? We think we'd cleared out all of the subscriptions and then another yearly one would pop up for some software or some membership that we didn't know about. Magazine subscriptions that we never even read. I think that's a good place to start, isn't it? Is by consolidating what you've got rather than going out there and trying to find another form of income.
Yeah, I think all those things for sure, but I don't think they're the things that are really going to get you out there because they're just small things. But yeah, they do add up, and not to the point where they bring you enough money to do the whole thing.
We're still going to buy the boat, but what it does, it locks in that financial discipline that you need when you're on a boat.
It definitely would, change your mind.
And it declutters it, and it makes your house more rentable because there's less clutter. And reining in your spending as well. That sounds like another obvious thing. I mean, my dad used to say, earn 20 quid, spend 21, you'll be miserable. Earn 20 quid and spend 19, you'll be great because that compounds and saves over the years. The other big saving, well, it wasn't really an expense, but the thing that we didn't spend money on was an expensive wedding.
I think it's the idea that there's certain things you have to spend money on, but people all think this is what's got to happen. But it doesn't. You can do it in your own way. And you don't have to do the massive wedding if that's what is happening in your life. Yeah. But if you're thinking later to go sailing, even at your wedding, you can start thinking ahead. Yeah. And start thinking, I'm just going to have a small, quiet affair with a few friends, and the money's going to go towards the trip later in life. So,
do you know how much the average wedding costs in the UK?
Tens of thousands, probably.
Incredible for a one-day party. It's nuts, isn't it? So that would buy you a very, very basic boat. So our wedding cost how much?
A couple of £100, probably.
So we borrowed the rings, we borrowed the wedding dress, we had a venue, which was basically a cafe, burger and chips.
Yeah, a lot of people just wouldn't do that though, because there's that idea of what's supposed to happen.
That was fun though. Mind you, we did have 3 kids by that point, so it wasn't exactly a white wedding, was it? We didn't invite the family, which pleased them no end. I mean, we did start to get a modest income from the YouTubing and Patreon. That kind of helped as well.
It kept us going, it topped us up a little bit. I think what it really allowed us to do is some more trips that we wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
On the budget we had, we couldn't really afford those trips, but we could afford it with Patreon.
Yeah.
and YouTube, that helps a bit as well.
Yeah,
That's
that-
what allowed us to go really exploring and doing more land travel, I would say.
Yeah. We were lucky enough to meet up with some patrons as well, who put us up and showed us their local area. Well, there's Tasmania, there's Turkey.
Oh, yeah. And occasionally some of them helped us out. We had a couple of repairs.
We had sponsorship as well, didn't we? Particularly lithium
Yeah,
batteries.
we got that. So little things like that really did help.
Yeah. But anyway, we want to bring it back to how you get the money in the first place and how you budget for the initial trip. So for a family lying awake at night, wondering how they can afford it, would you have any advice for them?
Like I always say, really, keep it simple. Lower your expectations. Go for something small.
What do you mean lower expectations?
Well, don't expect to have the biggest, fanciest boat in the anchorage. Just go for the smaller boat than you think you want, and just keep the life simple. Keep the boat simple as well. Don't have loads of extra things on the boat that can break and they're going to cost money. Have the spare money to go travelling, I would say.
Yeah.
And just keep the small boat that's safe to get you around.
Yeah. Adjust your lifestyle. Sell the junk. Start focusing on what you need and basically spend less than what you make, and the maths will do the rest for you.
Unless, of course, you have a massive budget, then go for the best.
Yeah. We did meet people who had huge budgets as well.
Just go for the best and enjoy it, make the most of it.
Yeah.
And invite those people on those little boats on your boat. Or
Like
make
that.
friends with someone with a bigger boat.
Anchor next to somebody and be very friendly. The other thing that we did notice is there are people out there who were living off their pensions. And we were quite envious of them because they seemed to always be eating out, always enjoying themselves, socializing. But then actually when we talked to them, they were envious of us because we were doing it with our kids. So even though we had a lot less money, they said, I think what you're doing is great. I wish we'd done that with our kids when we were younger.
Yeah, it just proves that it's not about how much money you've got in the end. Money can't buy time with your kids. It doesn't matter if you've no budget. The fact that you're spending time with your kids is worth a lot more, isn't it, really?
It is, yeah. Those are invaluable times. Imagine getting to retirement age and then having those regrets.
Whether you've got kids or not, regrets that you haven't lived an adventure that you wanted to live.
Well, that's true. You go, your knees are still working and your kids have still got wonder in their eyes and still fascinated by the world. So next we'll talk about career. Not a problem we had because we worked for ourselves for decades. But that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. See you next week. Bye.